Bernar Venet was born in 1941 and has been active since 1961 when he began his artistic career at the tender age of 19. He moved to New York in 1966 and has lived there since, and has also been splitting his time in Le Mue near Nice in the south of France. Perhaps he's best known for his monumental, even gargantuan steel outdoor sculptures under the series names of Indeterminate Lines and Arcs. He has exhibited them around the world, including in Hong Kong in 1995 and also in 2012. His current survey exhibition is in its last week at the Guangdong Museum of Art in Guangzhou, following an earlier presentation in Beijing, and provides an excellent overview of the fascinating evolutionary trajectory of the artist's practice. From early avant-garde experiments with unusual materials such as coal, tar, car paint, even garbage, to his encounter with American minimalism when he moved to New York in the mid-1960s, to his use of mathematical formulas and scientific treatises in the 1970s, and to the sustained exploration of lines and angles and arcs that continue today. So this conversation today, especially for those of you who didn't have a chance to see the exhibition, is a great opportunity to hear from the artist himself about his philosophy and his practice. And I think many of you already know Jean-Marc Bottazzi, and that this gathering would not have been possible without the effort and, let's say, imagination of Jean-Marc, our patron, donor, and a member of the International Council of Visual Art. So thank you.
I'm only here because he was IO's partner.
Okay, well, we can go into that. Anyway, again, thank you, Bernar Venet and Jean-Marc Bottazzi. Yeah, so off we go.
Yes, yes. I was so lucky to be a friend of Ayo, otherwise I would not be here, of course. Yes, yes. He was the first artist I met when I arrived in New York, so I was very well inspired to call him. Although it's, I had to wait, 66 to so many years, I don't know what to say, to be lucky enough to meet you. Thank you.
Okay, let's start with this. So long, I mean, this is about Nice, right? We have to speak about this because there's so much happened when you were young there. And I think there were three artists having a conversation on the beach and splitting the word among themselves. So there was Yves Klein, there was Claude Pascal, and there was Armand together. So Armand, well, actually, let's start with Yves Klein, it's the easiest. He would take the sky, and then Claude Pascal would take the words, and Armand would take her. I guess you probably would be, I mean, Armand has been your mentor a lot, and in fact, you probably took over for him to take the same opposition to Yves Klein on this thing. So maybe you can explain what you had in mind with this well, actually, this happening that you
performance,
did
yes.
at the time.
Yes. Okay, good. This is 1961. I'm only 19 years old and I am in the army. I managed to convince not the general, but the colonel that I had a contract with a gallery in Paris, which was not true at all, but I knew what I wanted. So I said, I have a contract, I have to paint, and they gave me a studio. So during my time in the army, during 10 months exactly, before I went to Algeria, there was a war in Algeria, but before that I spent 10 months doing only art. And I was making pieces with tar and also cardboard. And the cardboard, I was calling them garbage. You know, it was my attitude. You know, when you are 19, you want to be revolutionary. You want to be aggressive with the established art world. And I was thinking, haha, things like this will never be in a museum. Things like this kind of cardboard pieces that I don't know if we are going to see them after. But, okay. They will never be in the bedroom of the rich lady, you know, like you want to, you know, to impress everybody. And one day, it's a longer story than what I'm going to tell you, but I was lucky enough to meet Marcel Duchamp, okay, that day. And I showed him my studio, and I became so excited to meet an artist who was still totally unknown by everybody except by a few, because he did not even have an exhibition at that time, but I knew from a magazine or two that he was someone, you know, on the run, and I thought, oh my God, this, you know, now I know someone famous, you know, to me he was, because he had one article, and I got so excited that I decided to make a performance. So I went to see a friend of mine and I said, okay, you are going to take pictures like this, like that, okay, and I was like checking everything, and I went into the garbage to make a performance. My idea then was that I wanted to extend the activity of an artist. You know, making paintings alone was not enough. I wanted to, I had this principle. I'm sorry, but I can't speak for 2 hours without stopping. You stop, you go like this, okay? Okay. Yeah. I had this principle, what I call the principle of equivalence, where when you have a concept, you can explore it in painting, sculpture, performance, music, video, all kind of things. If it's like a good, strong concept, not if you are a painter and if you find a style, I don't want to mention names, but let's say Polyakov, you know, you find a style and then for 40 years you repeat the same painting, just changing colors a little bit, but of course you make a lot of money. But this was not what I was looking for. I wanted to think in terms of art. You know, in fact, Yves Klein was talking about le dépassement I forget right now, de la problématique de l'art. Okay, so the going beyond the problematic of art by you know, you have a sort of conceptual matrix, and from this conceptual matrix you can go in many, you can find several ways to really present your work. This is what I was trying to do. And that day I know you are going to tell me, okay, Bernard, look, Yves Klein is there, you know, flying, and you are down on the middle of the garbage.
And so there is transcendence and immanence, right?
That's exactly, these are the words.
Now, the guy in the middle, Pascal, was, with words, was the sign. He was semiotics in a way. Yes. So you're going to try to drive that guy your side.
You see, I never met him. I never met Claude Pascal. I never met Yves Klein.
But you're going to try to make, we're going to speak about Mondosemi soon, but
yes.
You're going to, this is the closest thing at the sign level to immanence.
We can say that, and yes, of course, yes, we can say that. But it's really, you know, very important art historian analyze that. The day I did that performance, I was not thinking at all about Yves Klein. I called it actually an homage to Armand, but it was just a relationship. But it was really directly related to my artworks, which were not looking like Armand, because, as you know, I never got into using objects like the new realist. I was really in opposition to them. I respected them, but I would never do that.
But you're engaging just a little bit like Chirac, engaging with concrete, engaging the mud like him. Just with on
definitely. Although I think that I didn't know about Chirac, I was too young to know about his work. Yeah.
And there's another analogy we're going to see later, because he also did food painting, so we're going to see that.
Yes, yeah.
But before that, very briefly, you also did. So those Armand was really of all those people in it was really, is it wrong to say was little bit of your mentor more than any.
He was a mentor only because he made me discover many things. You know, I was again when I met Armand, I was 22, and I had no culture. I didn't know anything about anything, you know, except about art, because I was so obsessed with it. But I never received any influence from Armand. On the contrary, I went in the opposite of it.
Yes, you went to purity later. Yes.
Yeah.
But so on this, and this is a rare moment for you because you're going to tell us why you reject the abstract expressionism. But this is your abstract expressionism moment on the right side. Those are the 3 seconds painting that you did in the series. And actually the counterpart of an early series for Armand, which is this Allure series, which is so maybe you can tell us why you, in the end, want to reject that side of approaching art.
Yeah, well, first of all, I didn't know back then that work, you know, this works, yes, they are known.
Yeah, no, it's just
yes, I know he was using objects, you know, that he was pouring to ink and then throwing them like this. No, the day I made my piece like this, I just wanted to do something uncontrolled.
Losing control.
Exactly.
Like them, right?
And this has been my work in 1961, in 1963 with the charcoal pile, and up to today when I do a generative painting. So it's interesting that you show it because it already expressed what I was into.
Trying to lose control. So speaking of further in the same direction, you wanted to, maybe one of the things you don't like about the abstract is that they still compose, right? They still have, right? So those things, this is one of your paintings, one of your foot paintings on this. You've been using, maybe you want to talk about that.
Yes.
The difference also with Chiraga, because you're precisely not doing like him.
Exactly, yes. No, again, I didn't know his work. It's just the idea that one day I discovered, you know, a big piece of tar running down from a cliff, and the gravity aspect, impressed me a lot. I just thought, my God, you know, gravity is perhaps a way to do art. First of all, you don't control gravity. Gravity is just the law of the world, of the universe, and then it would be a way not to make composition again, yes. You know, no arbitrary composition.
That's one of the differences. You can see Chiraga here doing touch-ups, right? When you are, you try to, how do you do it? Can you show us how you...
I know, he wants me to do it.
How you were painting with your feet.
Okay. First I had some espadrille. How do you say?
Oh, that's the shoes with the
socks. You use on a boat. You use it on a boat.
Yeah. Anyway, I had those pieces of paper because I didn't have, you can hear me, I didn't have canvas, I could not buy canvas. So I had pieces of paper, I put them on the floor. I had some bitumen, tar, and I was pouring it a little bit, and then I would just go like this, you know, without looking.
You're not looking, right?
No, I was not looking.
Was there any
As long as
music?
I was on the paper, because if I was outside, it would not work. But anyway, I was just doing that to do, again, uncontrolled artwork, just like I'm still doing today.
But then you look at it, you still thought it was too much composition, right?
Exactly. That's why me very quickly I thought, but there is still a subject.
You went to that.
Exactly. I decided that no more, subject and background white. I have to cover the entire. And I thought tar is becoming the subject.
So you will still do it with your feet?
Yes, I was still doing it with my feet because I didn't want to use the traditional, tools in order to do art. But here I'm becoming conscious that there is something more interesting than making a painting. It's that I'm exhibiting tar. I'm exhibiting, you see, I call it a tar painting, and it's tar. There is no confusion. It's really self-referential. It's immanence again. And all the paintings that I did later on in 1963, like the one, no, this is not me.
This is, you're the other corner. The other one is Malevich,
Yes.
This guy, in the 19th century actually, this is a black man fighting in the night.
Yes.
And this is Soulage. But it was the spirit of the time actually.
It's, you know, when you want to be radical, you know, you do. You know, I had this painting in my hands. Very few people did. It was like 3 years ago. We discovered those painting. Yes, the one did in 18 something.
1882.
Yes, and it's an amazing. Actually, it's very
I believe it is
radical.
in 1950. So it's
Yeah. Yes. No, but you see, the artists who are doing things like this, Rauschenberg included, is when we would really want to say, okay, art was like that, but let's go somewhere else, you know, and you start with blank, you know. Yeah.
and you were blissfully unaware, actually.
I wasn't aware of Rauschenberg, I wasn't aware of all those things,
Adrian
of course.
Rose.
Yeah. I knew about Soulage, if I am honest, and I loved black, that's for sure.
And Ben is the guy who made you aware of the Adrian thing, and then you said, okay, I'm going to
Yes,
change.
yes, exactly, yeah.
We're-
That's a
we're-
very important moment for me. You know, I was in my studio in Nice, in a studio that was big, like 4 meters by 3 perhaps, and I was making those paintings covered with tar, but you know, it smells, you know, so strong, you get like sick to have that around you. And one day I said, okay, I'm going to get out. In those days, you see, I have a tie. It's incredible because to look serious, but it was always the case, you know, in the beginning of 20th century, to be accepted as someone serious, you have to have a tie. It's funny, but because I decided, okay, I'm going to go and walk outside and breathe a little bit. And suddenly, I'm walking, and on the sidewalk, I see a pile of gravel mixed with tar. Now, everybody is passing by and nobody has like an epiphany, as Hans-Ulrich Lobrist would say, you know, but I see that and I'm thinking, oh my God, this is a sculpture of mine. The paintings in my studio are tar 2 dimensions. Okay, they are painting, but this is 3 dimensions. So I thought, oh my God, it's so important. So I went back to my house. Perhaps I put the tie at that time, I don't know. But anyway, I got a friend of mine who was a photographer, and I told him, you have to come and take pictures. And we took plenty of pictures, you know, I have several, some of them disappeared, but we took plenty of, just to show that something was happening. What exactly? Well, yes, the idea that I could make a sculpture. And the day after, I wanted to make one because it was becoming important to me. Fortunately, I could not do it with this, but I did it with charcoal. And the charcoal became the ideal solution. Do you have a picture of a charcoal pile? Because the charcoal is such an important moment.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Let's pretend it's charcoal.
So did the concept
Concept,
after.
yeah, right.
I know he told me that I had to follow him. You know?
No, you don't have to, but I'll be lost. Anyway, it's charcoal now. It was tar, but it's charcoal.
But the charcoal, the advantage of charcoal is that it was malleable, yes. And suddenly I realized that I could make a sculpture big like this, or bigger, and higher, and smaller. And then I thought, oh my God, the idea of sculpture without specific shape. And that was a concept that never existed before. The sculpture has a shape. If you change something, well, you are changing the sculpture. Here, no. You know, that would be the rule. No specific shape. And many other parameters also, like gravity and many things. But anyway, also, pardon, I say it here, okay. Also, the idea that for the first time, it was a concept. It was not a sculpture that you make one day, and then if you have a show, you take it and you bring it there. And when there is another exhibition, you take it again and you bring it, like between us. This is what Robert Morris was doing with his earth pile that he showed at one gallery in '68, something like this. That piece is in a crate, and if you want to exhibit it, well, you have to ask the crate. I mean, you know, people.
You claim to be the first conceptual pilot.
The first conceptual
Pilot is yours, no? You're the first one to have done the pilot.
Oh, the pile, oh, definitely, sure, yes. The idea of the pile is the first one. But the fact that it's a concept, and each time you just recreate the work, and you can have this sculpture exhibited in 10 places at the same time, that is a concept that never existed before. You see.
And each time it's the real piece. And each time the charcoal is going to go back to the charcoal dealer. But in the exhibition, it's really the work that I intended to create, yeah. So these are concepts. I hope you understand what I'm not talking about beautiful painting, beautiful sculptures, cute stuff. No, we talk about concepts here, yeah.
So that's when you went to the US.
And yes, in 1966, I'm a typical immigrant, yeah.
So there you go. So you arrived there. What happens? You see some shows.
Yes. Yes, I arrived in New York while I was making reliefs with cardboard, painted with a spray gun, and very relatively geometrical, but I was feeling very lonely in France because everybody was doing pop art or new realism. It was in the early 60s, it was a return to reality. And I hope you make me talk about Duchamp after. But I was making abstract work, and nobody was interested in my work. Suddenly, I arrived in New York on April 1st, 1966. April 2nd, 1966, I go to the Whitney Museum, and what do I discover? I discover minimal art. And I see those artists that I never heard about, Solly Whitcomb, André Fleming, Judd, and so on. And they are doing what? Geometrical abstraction, industrial paint, and I feel, and they are abstract, of course, and suddenly I feel a relationship between them and me. So my work was very influenced immediately, but it lasted a very short time. I did some tubes like this, but originally they were very small. They were big like this. It was a tube in cardboard, and I painted it yellow like industrial paint that we were using for cranes and stuff.
Like caterpillars,
yeah. And then I get invited to a show. To tell you the story of that, I get invited to a show when I come back to France, and I'm thinking, how can I show a small sculpture big like this? My friends are going to put huge paintings in that museum, and I will be lost. So I'm thinking, I should make a plan of the tube with all the instructions, and I give that to the museum. At least it will be bigger, it will be a big plan, and perhaps the museum can make the tube, and I give it to them. But then I'm making this plan like this, and I'm looking at it. You do things. You have to understand. All that is very intuitive. You just do something that nobody did before, and you are lost. You are alone in the world, to think that. But I look at that, and I'm thinking, what about if instead of presenting objects, I showed information about the object? And that was the beginning of my conceptual art period, when I thought information, instructions, not an object again. There are enough objects like this in the world, and the minimalists are all making their own objects, and Judd, and so on and so on. So I presented a work like this, and this is the first monosemic artwork, where what you see is exactly what it is. There is no possible interpretation. Then I had talked with Judd about the specific object, and the title, he was calling them untitled, but these are, more subjective. We have only 2 hours to talk today, so we don't.
So that's the next. So is this of all the mathematical, this is your favorite, no?
Let me tell you, one day someone said to me, Bernard, if there was only one work to remain of you, which one would it be? My answer is this one.
Is that Pompidou, this one?
It's a Pompidou, yes. It's this one because, forgive me, but since I'm here to talk, I don't want to sound pretentious, but
please do.
This is, okay, then I say everything, okay, everything I think about myself, fantastic. No, but this is, can I say a revolution?
Yes. Okay,
you see, all art in the past has been figurative since the beginning of human being, okay? Then, since 1910, 12, because we cheated a little bit with the dates, Kandinsky, Delaunay, many other artists, fabulous artists, Kupka and so on, they created abstraction. So now art is figurative and abstract. And not to go too much into theoretical thing, there is a man, a semiologist called Jacques Bertin. Jacques Bertin came up and, oh, here it is, yes. Jacques Bertin came and he analyzes images, and he was a specialist into graph theory. And he said, you see, there are 3 different types of images in the world. Some are figurative, and we call them polysemic, poly, several, semic, signification. Some are abstract, and we call them pansemic. Pan is total signification. This is open to an infinite amount of interpretation, where the polysemic, at least you know it's a woman, it's the face of a woman. And then he said there is another category which is called monosemic, and this is the field of graphs, images, maps, where the idea is to communicate with precision. Of course, this had never been art before, and it's not, it could not be art because there is nothing from the artist, there is no, you just copy a diagram. I mean, how can you accept that? But how could you accept in 1912 that making like this would be also an artwork? You see, this is enriching our knowledge about art. It's another step. And I thought, I'm going to go and work in that direction. We will see where it takes me. And if one day it's being accepted by museum, then it will be, a major step. Pretentious, but I'm sorry. But it has its logic.
No, but this is dragging science to a unique subject. So to me, this is, in the initial conversation, taking Pascal and pulling it to the Armand side a bit. Because there's no difference between the object and what it represents. Anyway.
Okay.
There's more of this.
Oh. This is, I was very lucky to meet this man recently. Yes. So, here it's not monosemic, it's really polysemic.
But behind you there is.
Okay. Oh, these are pictures that you took. That someone.
Well, no, I took from a book. I could have taken.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So there is a difference between this, the first one from Pompidou, and this, where here you don't claim mastery of what your subject matter. Right. So can you explain?
Yes, there is no image at all. There is no diagram. In the first one, in fact, I stopped making those diagrams because some people would, after a few weeks or months, we would start to say, "Oh, I prefer this one than this one," and I thought, no. The aesthetic aspect doesn't count. We are talking about logic. We are talking about theory. So I stopped the diagrams and I went into making pieces like this one, for example, about the theory of sets, where I made several pieces like with this subject. Here you have 4 panels, but there is one with 6, 7, 8, or 1 panel, and then it becomes totally neutral. They all look alike, there is no difference. What is interesting is that TV on the bottom. Can I say something about it?
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
We're going to go back to the rest.
No, but let's stick to what you...
Okay. No, because you mentioned it doesn't have to be beautiful. It shouldn't be beautiful. In fact, so does it have to not be beautiful to be a conceptual artist? If you, there's a translation of God which says that, oh, beauty is finality without concept. So is it the case that if you're a conceptual artist that you shouldn't seek beauty?
You see, I belong to a generation that reacted against expressionism, because when you look, even the pop art was not expressionist, and minimal art even more so. And the conceptual, some people don't know the difference between conceptual art and minimal art. For me, since I belong to the first generation, to me it's very clear. Conceptual art of the 60s was neglecting completely anything related to forms, aesthetic, colors, aesthetic. We were into a theoretical approach of art, and we were only using language. That was the point. So aesthetic has nothing to do. We were just trying to give new definitions to art.
It's almost like if it's beautiful, it doesn't work.
If it's beautiful, it satisfies many people, but we were against that for a while, let's say. Yeah.
Okay, you can go back to your TV.
To that TV? Okay, you see that TV on the floor. in 1970, there was a very historical exhibition in New York called Information. The curator was Kynaston McShine. He's someone that everybody knows when you study, when you do art history. And he invited me and many artists, I mean Arakawa, Onkawara, but Warhol even was invited, so with many artists, you know, and he was just asking, what can you do about information? When he asked me, I thought about doing something very different. And I presented a TV. I asked him to present a TV on a table, and every day at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, he would put on the TV, the program would go on, and at 4 o'clock, when the program is finished, we turn it off. And the program was about the stock market, something which has nothing to do with art, okay? Just because I wanted to go in directions that were not what people expect usually. I wanted to go in direction totally unknown. So I was proposing the stock market. And this, they installed it the day of the opening. We have the photos, they are reproduced everywhere. But me, I was not at the opening because I had a show in Germany at the museum in Krefeld. So as soon as I came back to New York, you know, I was 29 years old, you know, my God, I want to see my work at the MoMA. So I jumped, I went to the MoMA, and I go into the room and I'm looking for my work. My work is nowhere. I don't understand, my piece is not there. So I called Kynaston McShine, I said, Kynaston, what happened? I don't see my work. And he said to me, but Bernard, you know, it was so disturbing to see a screen with images and sound, images moving and so on. So everybody was looking at them and it was disturbing for the other artists. You see, in those days, what you see today everywhere, you know, those screens with video and so on, which is most, you know, I won't say conventional, but totally accepted kind of art. In those days, it was totally forbidden. I mean, you could not do it. So it was pretty. But what is interesting about this is that some artists in Germany involved with NFT, you know, a new generation of artists involved with new technologies, they mention me all the time when they teach about mentioning that piece as one of the very first generative artwork. So.
There you go. So more of this type of full delegation. So slowly, you pushing yourself out of your art, right?
Yeah, I want to dematerialize the art. You know, since you are not involved with visual art, aesthetic, so you just try to go away from material things and aesthetic stuff. So here I went very far because, okay, I was mentioning that I had this exhibition in the museum in Krefeld, and I was only 29, but I had a retrospective exhibition. And the museum, the Kunsthaus in Hamburg, calls me and they say, oh, Mr. Venet, we would like to make an exhibition also of your work. What can we do? And I answered, this is what you are going to do. The day of the opening, I'm not going to come. In fact, I didn't even go to the museum, and I still never went to the museum. I say, okay, the day of the opening, you invite a mathematician. He's going to give a lecture. Now, why mathematics? Because again, I am into this new category of potential art, which is not figurative or abstraction, which is not polysemic or pansemic, but monosemic, okay? So, but this time I wanted to use only the language. Someone is speaking. So, the mathematician is going to come at the opening. He's going to give a lecture. People are going to listen to him. There will be nothing in the rooms, in the 2 or 3 rooms that were, you know, prepared for me, white walls. And then, for the duration of the show, there will be only the sound of the lecture. So that was a very radical proposition again.
So that's why this happened.
I made pieces. Oh yes. Yes, but then I have to tell the story of Duchamp.
Of course, that's where we're ready now.
Are you ready, everybody?
Yes.
Okay. It's a very beautiful story, but the fact that I met Marcel Duchamp is fantastic. I mean, we are not many alive today to have met Marcel Duchamp. I think I know only 2. Le Bel and Jasper Johns, who is still alive, you know. But otherwise, I think very few. But please, the story is much beyond me talking about the fact that I met Duchamp. But let me tell you a story from A to Z. Now, there are moments, really, that sound, how can you repeat this, Bernard? But it's really the reality. It sounds pretentious, but it's really what happened, precisely, word by word, because, of course, you meet Duchamp, and 2 days after you tell the story, or even that same evening, or you know, to everybody, and again and again and again, and then you, of course, memorize precisely certain words, and I'm going to tell you. Okay. So this is what's happening. November 25, I'm having dinner at Christo. Christo knew, Christo the artist, of course, but you know very well. He knew that I was not eating every day. I was living at the Chelsea Hotel in Armand's apartment. Again, that's where Armand was very determinant for me also. And he calls me and says, Bernard, come and have dinner. There is a collector from Belgium coming to join us, so we will be 4 of us. I'm coming to Christo, and we have the dinner. Christo, he was speaking all the time, you know, about his work, constantly, because I could not say one word. No, that's typical of Christo. There is also Soulage and Ellsworth Kelly. If you are with them, nobody is going to say one word. Anyway, we speak a lot, and at the end of the dinner, the man, Mr. Fishman, says to me, but what are you doing, Bernard? And Christo says, oh, look, this is a work of Bernard, and on the wall, yes, there was a piece of mine and a diagram, astrophysics diagram, so black lines on a white canvas and so on. And the man looks at her and says, oh my God, really, this is what you do. This is art. You know, he was very surprised. And this man, we have to know, was a big collector. He was buying a lot of Christo, but he was also collecting Carl André, Richard Long, everybody. But he never saw something that could, you know, pretend to be art looking like this. And I say, yes, that's what I'm doing. He says, but you have a studio? I had a studio, which was Armand's studio. Where is your studio? Well, it's 200 meters away. We were on Broadway, and Christo was living also on Broadway, and it was just like 5 blocks above. So he said, oh, can I see? I was so happy that someone wanted to see my work. So we walk together, we go to Armand's studio, and here are all my diagrams, you know, mathematics, nuclear physics, astrophysics. And he goes like this, and he says, oh my God, I never saw such a thing, you know. And it's true, but in those days, nobody ever saw something looking like that. So he says, no, we have to, oh, you know what? I have to give you my number, you give me your number, okay? And next year we meet in Venice, because I want you to meet the gallery Wide Space. You probably heard Wide Space was exhibiting Joseph Beuys, wood tires, and so on. Oh, you have to meet them because they are very avant-garde and you should show them. Oh, yes, okay, so we exchanged numbers and I'm thinking, my God, finally someone is looking at my work. Only the artists were looking at my work, but no collector. So, okay, goodbye, we see each other next year, okay, good. 2 days later, that's when it's happening. 2 days later, it's like 6 o'clock, 6 p.m. I am, of course, at the Chelsea Hotel in Armand's apartment. The telephone rings. I think it's for Armand, but no, it's for me. Mr. Fishman says, Bernar Venet? I said, yes. He says, oh, okay, I'm glad to reach you. Do you know where I was today? I said, no, I don't know where you were. He says, well, I was with Marcel Duchamp. I said, well, lucky you. I wish it would happen to me. He says, Bernard, it's going to happen to you because Mr. Duchamp wants you to call him. I say, Mr. Duchamp wants me to call him. He says, yes, I tell you why, okay. And forgive me, this sounds pretentious, but precisely like this. He says, yes, I told him about your work, and I said, but I saw some artworks, but nobody does things like this. And I told him, forgive me, I told him that I met the new Marcel Duchamp. I said, oh, please, you know. He said, no, but okay, Bernard, you know what you do? This is his telephone, and you call him up. I take the telephone, he hangs up, and I'm thinking I'm going to call Marcel Duchamp. Okay, now you have to know something. 1967, Marcel Duchamp was for many people someone very important, but he was not the god that he is today. So really, someone 26 years old today will meet Duchamp. I mean, you know, it would be too much. But in those days, Duchamp was like just one more famous artist like Man Ray, whom I knew, and others, but it would be like Marcel. So yes, giants, but in those days, it was not the same as today. So anyway, I dialed the number, and I have a lady answering. It's Madame Duchamp, Tini Duchamp. And I said, you know, I'm Bernar Venet and Mr. Fishman. Said, oh yes, yes, of course. He told us a lot about you. Let me pass you Marcel. Hello, Monsieur Duchamp. Yes, I'm Bernar Venet, and Mr. Fishman told me that I could call you. Yes, yes, yes. Of course, he told you a lot about you. You know, why don't you come and visit me? Yes, with pleasure. Well, I don't know if you are very busy, but tell me when you can come. Oh, it's not busy at all. So, I can come anytime, Mr. Duchamp. Well, can you come tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock after my nap? I remember those words. You know. She says, yes, of course, Mr. Duchamp. I will come tomorrow. Okay. We hang up. I have the address and everything. Now, I'm thinking, Marcel Duchamp heard that I am the new Marcel Duchamp. Okay? I have to be good. I have to be good. I'm 26 years old. He's 80 years old. He's in history. I'm nobody. But I have some ideas, fortunately. And that evening, what do? I prepare my photos. You know, I had some photos, no catalog, of course, photos. And I'm thinking, what am I going to tell him? And the day after, I'm ready. Now this is when it becomes interesting, actually. The day after, 3 o'clock, I buzz. Madame Duchamp is coming to pick me up. I go upstairs, and just to describe a little bit the atmosphere, you know, I see this big room like this, and you know, with Brancusi on the here, and I see the famous armchair that Marcel's offered him with horns. You know, it's a famous. I mean, we have seen the picture since then, and he's sitting there in an armchair, and there is a small table and a couch right here. And I come, I say hello to him, and he says, "Please sit down on the couch." And I sit on the couch, and you know, normally, what are you going to say? Well, I prepare very well. So I start to tell him, I'm so pleased to meet you because, of course, we speak French. You know, we are two French people, you know, there is a difference of age, but as you can see, I'm kind of easy, and Duchamp was someone very easy. He was not pretentious, he was ready to have a talk, you know, so I feel it immediately. And I said to him, I'm pleased to meet you because thanks to Christo, you know, it happened. And but I'm sure you are going to be glad to know that last year I met Man Ray, and we had a very funny story, you know, and I told him the story about Man Ray. It's another story, it's crazy. Anyway, and then I say, oh, and Armand is always talking about you because you play échec, chess together. And so I had like a bunch of names. I had also the famous Billy Copley, who actually who is an artist, and he was a good friend of all the surrealists. He was a good friend of Duchamp, and he was the one, by the way, who was sponsoring Duchamp to do that famous piece that you look through a hole, étant donné. He was giving a room for Duchamp, and Duchamp was so okay. Oh, how is Billy, and so on, and you know, and we had a talk. So that goes on for 20 minutes, and yes, we have several friends in common. Very good. And after a while, he says to me, "Tell me a little bit about your work." I take my little envelope, I get some photos out, and I show on the table like this. And yes, he says, that's very original, you know, tell me a little bit about the work. And so I explained to him that I'm using scientific information in order to go away from subjective interpretation of the artist. You know, I say to him that what I find interesting today is to, I'm not interested in looking at art forum and art in America as references to do art. I prefer to go to Columbia University, where I find books, you know, material that gives me new sources of inspiration. And yeah, that's very interesting. Okay. the big thing is to come. So I say, I'm not interested in objects personally, like the new realist, you know, Armand, Tinguely, and everybody, Christo, and so on, you know. But I respect enormously your work, but you see, I'm really trying to go in a different direction. And what I appreciate about you, Mr. Duchamp, is that you were so radical and you did things that nobody did before. So radicality is also something that interests me. Oh yeah, okay. And then I say, you see, if we can talk very freely like this, if you want, I can tell you why my work is more radical than what you have done yourself. In art history, you know, huge, you know, but what I did, I'm much more far away from traditional art, even 20th century art, than you were. She says, oh, tell me. Okay, and this is very interesting for those of you who are interested in theory. This has never been contradicted until now by anybody. I say, you see, all artists, no exception, are working in two possible directions. The first one is when the artists are looking at the world around them and they do representation, interpretation, or presentation. Presentation, it's you. You didn't copy nature, you presented nature. It's huge, it's fantastic, and we look at all the influence today, it's extraordinary. But you see, you are still dealing with this visual world. And actually, the bottle rack that you presented in 1914, if I'm not wrong, it's an object that could have been on a table and that Mr. Van Gogh or Cézanne could have painted. This belongs to the visual world around us. But me, a mathematical equation is a pure abstraction. It's not something that you catch like this and you put on the table and Mr. Cézanne is going to paint it. So you see, you belong to this first category and I don't. So you are closer to tradition than I am. And then, oh yeah, then, you know, perhaps I was saying a little bit more shy, but no, I was very clear. I mean, we're talking about serious stuff, you know. When I say the second line is when the artist did not use the visual world to do art, mainly the artists who are doing abstraction. But each time, their personality is being transparent. I don't know how we say that in English. Is expressed in the artwork. Always, you know, like think of, and I tell him, I say, think about Jackson Pollock and Franz Klein, you know, those guys were drinking whiskey and painting and they were very brutal, you know. Oh, think about Rothko, you know, involved with the sacred, with religious, you know, the soberness and so on. Rothko was like this. I met Rothko and I knew he was very much like that. And then I remember I mentioned Mondrian, and I said, Mondrian, that you probably knew, you know, he was like, when he was like square like this all the time, very serious, you know, and he looked like his painting. Then I mentioned Adriana being dressed always in black, you know, and his painting is expressed all the time. They say, when you did the Gioconda with the mustache, and you write L-H-O-O-Q, many of you don't know what it means. Can I say what it means?
Yes.
You think so? Okay, so he wrote L-H-O-O-Q. Now, when you read that in French, it means her ass is hot. Okay, you get it? She has a hot ass. And so, sense of humor. Okay, some people just read L-H-O-O-Q. Okay, but then if you are French and if you read it fast, you understand what it says. So I said, you see, your personality transpires through the work. When you did the bottle rack, the snow shovel, and you wrote on it, in advance of a broken arm. Again, you know, it's like a joke, you know, of course, use the snow shovel before you break your arm, you know, with the snow. And I gave him a few examples like this. And I say, you see, your personality is still
involved with typical of the Dadaist and so on. And I said, me, it's not the case at all. When I present an artwork, and in those days I had an exhibition in the museum in Chicago, I called Jack Ullman at Columbia University, who was my advisor. When I say my advisor, it's because he was suggesting some mathematical or scientific subject in order for me to say I did not choose it. So I was calling Jack Ullman and I say, Jack, can you select a subject and you send it to Chicago? They are going to make the blow-ups and I won't even go to the opening. I did that. And I say, you see how distant I am with the artwork. So you see, Mr. Duchamp, you still belong to those two categories and I don't. And then you are going to tell me, what did he say? I didn't give him a chance. I said, and this is when I do visual art, but you see today I'm making pieces which are totally dematerialized. In fact, we were in November those days. I said, in February, I went to tape a lecture by a scientist, nuclear physics, and I presented it as a work of art to a bunch of friends, artist friends. And so you see, I can even do things which are not tangible. And he looked at me and he says, so vous vendez du vent. Translated, it says, so you are selling wind, which in French is not a compliment, because you are, vous vendez du vent means, yeah, you do anything, So I go like, what do you mean? And he wrote, he had his newspaper in front of him, and he wrote exactly what you have here. La vente de vent est l'event de Venet, which means the sale of wind is the event of Venet. And of course we laughed because he...
So many anagrams.
Yes, exactly. He made he improvised in 2 seconds a sentence using my name. So I went, oh my God, I was like, we laughed and so on, and we spoke a little more. I had only one obsession, which was to take the newspaper and live with it. But I made a mistake. It's a good mistake, actually. We keep on talking a little bit, and my eyes are always on that, and then after a while I said, oh, I have to tell you something, Mr. Duchamp, and I have this bag here, and in the back there is a book. There is a book that was published in 1938 called Transition. It was about surrealism, and on that book, there was the cover was done by Duchamp in silkscreen, a little original. And I said to him, oh, Mr. Duchamp, you see, Armand gave me that book one day, and he said that if one day I meet Mr. Duchamp, then if you sign it, I will have an artwork from you. And he looked at me, he smiles, and he said, okay, give it to me. And he wrote for Bernar Venet, Marcel Duchamp. Now, I have an artwork from Marcel Duchamp. I did not dare asking him to take this pen there. Yeah, I have my limits, you see. But this is my story with Duchamp. But what the most interesting is the theoretical discourse that I had with him, not just that I met him, Yeah, okay.
Okay. So in the end, not yet. So you would retire. Just that. I mean,
yeah.
When you reach this thing where you totally excluded yourself, it's almost like there's no you're dead, right? So you decided to retire, right?
Exactly. But I had planned to retire in 1967. I wrote a sort of manifesto saying that I was against aesthetic, but that what was important was the content in art, not the visual aspect of art.
There was no room for you in your art.
There was no room for me except the brain, the theoretical aspect, yes. So I made a program of work, with different disciplines, which had nothing to do with meteorology, what do you do with meteorology? What do you do with stock market, and stuff like that. And so I said, okay, I'm going to work for 4 years and then I will stop. It was planned, and I did, of course. I did because there was no reason for me to make variations. Making variations was satisfying my needs of making art. This I should not do.
By the way, all the theory you're telling us, you were not finished. You were still doing this, some of it intuitively. You only would do it like this Bertin guy. You only come after you retire.
Exactly, yes. Yes, I don't believe that an artist should have a concept and work from the concept. I always say, you see, a young artist should just, because he has a taste, he's going to go in one direction or the other. But he should be like an explorer. When you are a real explorer, you don't go on an island that you already know what you are going to find. You are on your boat like this, you know, and suddenly you see an island there and you are going to discover it. You're going to put your feet in it, you're going to see the kind of trees, the kind of this, the kind of that, and then one day you will be able to talk about it. In art, if you are really adventurous, this is how it should be. You should just go in directions that were never explored before. Then later on, you look at the work and you see relationship if you are someone honest, but honesty, Duchamp was making fun of honesty, he said that his maid was honest also. But let's say if you really do what you feel, if you have a strong personality, the work will have a logic all the way to the end. Yeah.
So in the end, your program had this end.
Yes, I said in 1970 it would be finished, yeah.
So why did you come back?
Okay, because, so I said I will stop forever, not like for a limited amount of time, I will stop forever. Okay, and I'm going back to Paris, because in Paris in 1972 there was a very intellectual context, you know, many writers, philosophers and so on, and also I knew the limits of my English. My English is not fantastic, and so I wanted to go to France and really study, because I never went to school much. I was not very good at school. I didn't care. I just wanted to do art. So I decided that I will go back to France and study structuralism, philosophy, semiology, just to learn how to think. And thanks to that, with semiology mainly and Roland Barthes in particular, I could find a language to give precisely the meaning of my work, and that's how this theory about pansemy, polysemy, and monosemy came up. It was, and for me, it was like a revelation the day I found that explanation of Jacques Bertin. So what I did is start to write about what I did, and because I wrote about it, I started to analyze a little bit more and criticize, write, analyze, criticize, and see the limits of what I had been thinking, and start to think that perhaps myself, I could put again myself into the work and see that there were other possibilities perhaps. And but then I thought, no way. I will never do something as radical as what I did before, so it's not worth doing it. I'm not going to do it. And one day, I'm back in New York at the end of September '76. I decided that I'm going to live in New York again. And I remember that weekend that I spent with some friends, and on Fridays, Saturdays, it was too long. I started to be very nervous and think, I have to go back to New York, to my studio, and make an artwork. I had an idea, and I thought, okay, I'm going to make one and perhaps two, but if it's not good, I just throw it away. But I had a very strong need, a physical need to do it. So I did that triangle with just writing the number of degrees as an artwork that will be monosemic, no confusion, it's an angle that I was painting, and it says only what it was. So I said, okay, nice, now I'm going to make an arc, all right, okay, I make a painting, a round painting, and I draw an arc on it, and the number of degrees again. And for about 3-4 months, I made several pieces, like perhaps 20 or 25, and I was hiding them. Nobody would see them except my wife in those days, but I was hiding them. People would come, okay, Christo would come for dinner, no, he would never see. And one day, Jan van der Mark, he was the director of a museum in Chicago, he comes to visit me, and this man was a very interesting intellectual, someone really responsible and very close to me. And I say, Jan, okay, look, I have been doing art. He said, what? I said, yes, I've been doing some art. He could not believe. I said, look, and I showed him the work, and he thought it was good enough to invite me to Documenta. He was one of the curators of Documenta. So I thought, okay, look, if I deserve to go to Documenta, I was actually the only Frenchman in that 77 to be invited at Documenta. So I thought, okay, I'm going to show my work. And I went from the paintings to the reliefs in wood like this.
And each time, you see, each year I was making another step because I'm bored immediately. I do something, I do 25 of them, and then I'm thinking, okay, now, where can I go? And it's one day while I was making a canvas that was round, but a piece of plywood fell on the floor, and I was thinking, oh my God, but this is an arc. How about if I put the arc on the wall like this? And I just covered it with clay, like a drawing, and this is how I started to make those pieces here. And I did arcs, angles, straight lines. That was the vocabulary of my work. And one day, okay, I'm not going to do that all my life, okay? I could make a living with this after a few years, perhaps people will buy it. And one day I'm thinking, no, how can I go beyond making those geometrical lines? Well, one way is to make a line which is totally free. And I made one. This is actually the second one, but the first one I made. And I remember gallerists and some people coming to me and say, Bernard, you cannot do that. No. People think that you are very serious, doing things geometrical, very sober. You cannot do something crazy like this. I said, well, let me work, let me try. And I made 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And then this is how, I don't know if you have more images here.
Yes. But before we move on, you're no longer a conceptual artist.
Definitely, I'm not anymore a conceptual artist. The concept is the most important thing. But I'm not using only language. Now I accept formal consideration, even aesthetic consideration.
So now it can be beautiful.
It's being beautiful is a matter of how you see it. It's the person who looks who find it beautiful or not. Not everybody was looking at my work and thinking that it was beautiful, but you create a new aesthetic. You don't do something beautiful is something that has been already accepted as beautiful. When you do something newly, radically new, it's not immediately convincing.
So this one,
yes, because as you saw, I did those relief in wood, and then one day, again, flat on the wall. Well, what about making it thicker, overlapping like this? And I did that piece, and that I kept for 2 months, and one day I'm thinking, but if I'm getting into spaces, how about making sculptures? So I was living on Canal Street. I went to, I don't know if you have one here. I went to buy some stick of aluminum like this, and I came back home and I went just like that. I put it on the table, and I thought, my God, it would be interesting to make sculptures like that. Well, that's a little bit later on when I started to make the monumental one, yes. Yeah, just the doodle like this. But then I thought, okay, I'm doing this, but then I can come back to the arcs, to the angles, and the straight line, of course, yeah. Okay, these are the arcs. This is in
it's beautiful.
It's,
you reconcile.
Yeah, some people find it beautiful, yes. But today,
Who doesn't?
but today, no, it was very spectacular, I must say, yes. I was invited to do a show at Versailles, and they said, make a gesture, and I thought, what am I going to do? And I thought, I'm going to take little Louis XIV, and I'm going to show him what I can do. Yeah.
So maybe as a closure, because we are interested by it, this is a project you did in '85 and would become one of the largest sculptures, right, ever, the Lac Majeur. How in hell do you get it done? We're just curious because this is about getting it shipped.
Yes, of course. Well, in 1983, precisely, Mitterrand, the president of France, asked Jacques Lang, the famous, yes, exactly, cultural minister, he said it would be interesting to have on highways some sculptures when people, they could see some sculpture. It would be nice. So Jacques Lang comes to me and he says, Bernard, do you have some ideas? And I said, yes, I think I have an idea because I thought about it already. The first time actually that I made a sculpture with arc, I thought, oh my God, a road or a highway into it, that would be fabulous. So immediately I made a drawing, a photo montage, and I sent it to him. Immediately they said, okay, we are going to do it. But the French administration is so slow that 35 years later, nothing was done. And I tell you, no, it's crazy. I tell you, I remember you know, Mitterrand had his office next door. Then his advisor closed the door, comes to our room. We are like 25 people around the table, the most important people on the highways and administration and so on. See, I just saw the president. He says he wants this sculpture to be made, okay? Yes, okay. We speak for 2 hours. After 2 hours, everybody is shaking hands. I pay champagne to everybody. I paid champagne so many times thinking that it was going to be done, and each time it was not going to happen. And one day, I meet this man from Belgium who says to me, Bernar, what happened with this project of the highway? I said, well, the French are still sleeping, you know. He says, okay, can we do it? I say, sure. 1 year and a half after that was installed. But this, when you say it's a big sculpture, this is actually 60 meters tall. It's the biggest sculpture in the world. There is none.
It's bigger. It's not as beautiful, but it's a bigger one.
But, no, the statues in Africa. Yeah, but this is not art.
I agree, but it's bigger.
Oh yeah, sure. There is bigger, but there is bigger what? Building also. No, it's not. Yeah. Anyway, okay.
The biggest beautiful sculpture.
Yes. You know, okay, the biggest good sculpture.
Non-conceptual, yeah.
Okay, so now it's existing. If one day you are in Belgium and if you drive between Luxembourg and Brussels, you will see it. Now, just for the fun of it, exactly an average of 150,000 cars are seeing my sculpture every day. So La Gioconda in Paris. Italy. Yeah. I'm sorry, I have to express my sense of humor a little bit also.
Well, that was actually a perfect way to close, you know, actually. But I know, Venet, you have so much to say. We could just sit here for hours.
And I will be in Paris tomorrow morning. I have to leave now also, no?
You have to go to the airport.
I have to go to the airport. I forgot completely. I was going to have dinner with you. Yes, you know, why don't we keep on talking? Yeah. Thank you. I'm
Yes.
sorry.
So, thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.